I'm lounging. I'm in my basement, and then he's gonna be making all these
you look
comments.
like
Man,
you're
leave me
lounging.
alone. Leave me alone, Stephen A. I mean, my goodness, let me have some peace on the show.
You never get any peace, Damian. What do you expect?
That's okay. I'll see him when he get back on set. He always want to have those Twitter fingers, but he'll see me when we get back on set.
Oh boy.
Ooh, child. Uh-oh.
Well, Damian, I would just also like to throw it out there. It was your birthday yesterday, so happy belated.
Yes, it was.
It was a good day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
But now
all right, well, guys, let's get right into it. Second half of this. Yeah, it's over now, okay? All right? No more compliments. That's it. Kimberly, I want to ask you, which player do you think is going to be under the most pressure as we head into the second half of the NFL season?
This was a tough one. I was going to say Mr. Unlimited, but it's really Aaron Rodgers because everybody else has a longer window. Aaron Rodgers, that window is closing very quickly on him, and I think the Packers got everybody's hopes up when they started the season. And it's like, oh, maybe they don't need another weapon. And fast forward to the trade deadline, and now everybody's up in arms that they didn't go out and get another wide receiver. That was the issue that they could have addressed in the draft. And coming into the season, I felt like Aaron Rodgers, we would need to see some wizardry from him. We would need to see Aaron Rodgers take this team again on his back and do it all. And that's where they're at right now. I think Russell has more pieces and he has more time. That window for Rodgers, it is shut in very quickly. So he's got to get it done now.
I like that, Kimberly, but I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. And I hate to do this to a guy that was an MVP from last year, but look at the games that he has played in which he has not been able to beat that team. The 2 playoff losses where you lose to the Chargers at home, to the Tennessee Titans last year. And then this year, you have a chance, you play a Pittsburgh Steelers team that was undefeated. You have a 17-7 lead, but you lose that ball game. He didn't play well enough, and 4 turnovers are not going to get it. He's going to be the player under the most pressure because he had such one of those once-in-a-generational kind of seasons that he had last year being the MVP, overcoming all those skeptics that basically said he could not play that way, run that way, pass that way, and lead his team to victory. And he's led his team to the playoffs in his first 2 seasons in the National Football League. But you got to be able to win that game. You got to be able to beat that Kansas City Chiefs team, that Pittsburgh Steelers team, that Tennessee Titans team. It's going to be very important that they don't lose to the Indianapolis Colts this weekend, because if they lose and he doesn't play well, then those whispers about him are going to get louder, thinking, I wonder if we've seen the best Lamar Jackson, what we saw last year, the MVP, which was great, but can he be a pressure quarterback and make those pressure plays and win in those pressure situations against teams that are on their level or they're supposed to be better than? That's why I believe that Lamar Jackson, based on what he did last year, setting that template this year, has the most pressure of anybody in the second half of the season.
I'll be at that Colts game, Colts-Ravens, so I'll let Lamar know that pressure's on him.
I'm sure he's willing to take that from me. Oh yeah, I'll put Freddie Coleman in his place. I'm sure he's thinking about that big time.
Freddie, I like that pick. I like that, but I'm gonna go with Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson, in my opinion, he's the league MVP.
Yep.
At the midway point of the season, and we all know the whole mantra of the Seattle Seahawks is let Russ cook. Right. This is the first time where they really just unleash Russell Wilson, and he's putting together a historic type of season with 26 touchdown passes, already this season. But the reason that he's had so much success is because it's needed, because their defense stinks. Their defense is one of the worst defenses in the National Football League in a bunch of statistical categories. They're giving up a ton of points. It seems like the Seattle Seahawks are in shootouts every week. So they actually need Russell Wilson to play at this unbelievable level, because their defense can't stop a nosebleed. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on Russell Wilson to continue to perform at this high level until they can somehow, some way get that defense settled down.
All of you make wonderful points, because I covered the Ravens in week 1, and the talk was, hey, it's Super Bowl or bust. We understand we're trying to get to the Super Bowl based on how we finished the last 2 years. With Russell, he is the league MVP right now. He's the running candidate. So he's a leading candidate. So if he falters, we got a long rest of the season for him to go and keep that pace up. But again, I just go back to who has more time Lamar is a young kid. Whether it happens this year or not, his career doesn't end in the next couple years. Like, he's got time to figure it out. Russell still has time. Aaron Rodgers, he really is on borrowed time. And we talk about some of the veteran quarterbacks in the league. A lot of them, that window, guys, it's not staying open forever.
Well, I'll disagree with you on when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, Kimberly, because I still think his window is still open. I don't think it's ready to put the shutters up for the winter and close up shop and make sure everything's going to be right and you come back in the spring. I don't think that's the case with Aaron Rodgers, because even at his age, there's still not a throw he can't make in the National Football League. Most guys show a little bit of regression in ability. We saw with Dan Marino. We saw with Tom Brady a little bit. We saw with Peyton Manning. But Aaron Rodgers, still with the flick of the wrist, that ball goes 60, 70 yards down the field. So even if the window may be closing a little bit in Green Bay because they drafted Jordan Love, and if you draft a guy in the first round, you want to see what he's going to do. He is not going to lack for any kind of suitors if he winds up on the open market at a certain point. So I still think that window is wide open. The pie still smells good. The birds are singing. There's still green grass and fresh air everywhere when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. That window may not be as shut as people may say about Aaron Rodgers, because he's still one of the elite players in the National Football League.
And Freddie, I want to, go to your pick in Lamar Jackson. Yeah, Lamar Jackson obviously coming off the MVP, season that he had last year. But you're right. There's been a lot of whispers about winning the big ones. I mean, Lamar Jackson's 24-1, against, everybody else. But when it comes to the big game, whether it's the Kansas City Chiefs, he's winless against the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw what happened against the Tennessee Titans last year. And we saw what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers with Big Ben Roethlisberger in this rivalry. So until Lamar Jackson wins one of these big games, there's going to be noise. And it's continue to make noise until he go ahead and solve this issue and comes up big in one of these games.
All right, so lots of pressure on the quarterbacks as we head into the second half of the season. I want to know specifically in the AFC, which team is under the most pressure to reach the Super Bowl? Damian.
I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens for everything that I just said. This is the team that they're built differently from everyone. They got a tremendous defense. They went out and they got all these different players. And Calais Campbell, they traded for Ngakoue from the Minnesota Vikings to help bolster their front seven. But this team is only going to go as far as Lamar Jackson and his ability to be that dual threat quarterback. Not only running but throwing, inside and outside the pocket. And what we've seen so far from the Baltimore Ravens, particularly on offense, they haven't been able to run the ball as well. And Lamar Jackson still needs to develop as far as the passing game is concerned, particularly down the field. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure for the Baltimore Ravens to try to capitalize, on this window that they have right now.
So I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers because right now they're 7-0. Ben coming off the surgery, we didn't know what the Steelers would look like, but they're 7-0. Nobody's beaten them yet. And in this division, you look at the Ravens. Last year, the Ravens, you'd look at that schedule and say, ooh, that might be an L for that team if they got to face the Ravens. I don't think people fear the Ravens the way they used to or assume they're going to end up losing to the Ravens. I think with the Steelers in this division, the Browns, the Bengals, it's ripe for the taking if they can stave off the Ravens. And I think, again, going back to the old QB thing, I mean, Big Ben does not have a lot of chances. Again, I think Lamar, he's going to have his chances. You got Joey Burrow. You got all these young kids coming up. Ben, his window is closing. And so I think this year it's set really up for the Steelers to really ride it out.
One thing we know about the NFL more than ever before, Kimberly and Damian and Charlie, it's no longer a week-to-week league. The NFL is a second-to-second league. You could be top headlines one year, and then the next year you're the Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots in 2020. And that's why I think the team in the AFC under the most pressure is the Baltimore Ravens. And remember this, it's one thing to be the hunted or the hunter. To your point, Kimberly, everybody is coming after them now based on what they've done in the first 2 years of Lamar Jackson being the starting quarterback. But here's another thing that people need to think about in terms of that pressure on him and the Ravens. they're not going to have their left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, out for the rest of the season after getting injured against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now you got to deal with that, replacing one of the best left tackles in the National Football League, not protecting the blind side of your quarterback. That puts even more pressure on the running game, even more pressure on Lamar Jackson. But here's another pressure that I like to call scoreboard pressure. Not just in their own division when it comes to Pittsburgh, but the Kansas City Chiefs. When you still got the biggest, baddest boy in the NFL jungle known as Patrick Mahomes, he's going to put pressure on you even though you're not in the same division. You have to keep up with that team and not just Pittsburgh. And if you're a Baltimore team that has gone 0 for 2 in the last 2 playoff years, those are going to be the kind of pressure you have to deal with inside your division and outside of that if you're Baltimore Ravens in the second half of the season.
All right, we got about a minute and a half to go. Kimberly, same question, but with the NFC.
Oh, I think it's the New Orleans Saints because, again, older QB, Drew Brees, you know, where do they go after him? You know, they've suffered some heartbreak the last couple of years. So with this team, I think this is his last hurrah, really, to get it done and for them to be able to keep this team together. We talked earlier about, is there trouble brewing in New Orleans? What's going on down there? I think this roster is going to look very different very soon.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers for me. You got Tom Brady. You got all these pieces. You bring in Antonio Brown. He's only going to be there for a year or two. That's the pressure team in the NFC because they had that look, in my opinion, where they're a very balanced team on both sides of the football and they're underrated in the special teams. But when you go all in on Antonio Brown, you're letting everybody know that you're here to do that. They have